An enemy out there. How Nomi.ai weaponizes its community to attack critics. A recently unearthed thread from the Nomiverse subreddit, a space curated for strictly positive content about Nomi.ai, offers a textbook example of how a community is not just cultivated, but actively weaponized to defend a platform at all costs. It is a live, documented look into a coordinated smear campaign, a paranoid witch hunt, and a culture of institutional gaslighting that comes directly from the top. The call to arms. Framing critics as enemies. The post begins with a deliberately inflammatory framing. It seems like Nomi has an enemy out there. The original poster describes discovering the investigation's documentation and expresses alarm at the comprehensive nature of the evidence being compiled. Whoever is behind it, is working relentlessly to try to bring the platform down, focusing on every possible negative thing about it. Why are they specifically targeting Nomi and not other AI companions in general? This immediately frames the investigation, a collaborative effort by multiple users documenting systematic harm, as an external threat, a personal vendetta, rather than what it actually is, methodical documentation of the platform's dangerous features and the company's abusive treatment of users. The tribalistic framing sets the stage for what follows, a synchronized defensive response that attacks the messengers while systematically ignoring the message. The official lie. Administration's disinformation campaign. The most damning piece of evidence comes from the very first comment, which reveals that this is not a grassroots reaction, but a narrative actively fed to the community by the company's own leadership. A user who claims to have spoken with Nomi's admins and moderators about the investigation provides what appears to be the official story. They are aware and know who she is. She's running a personal revenge campaign because she claims she lost her Nomi during one of the model updates. This is a deliberate and calculated lie. The investigation's actual origins lie in a small group of users who began sharing their experiences and discovered a disturbing pattern. The platform was generating dark narratives that included abuse, violence, gore, and other deeply disturbing content in documented cases. What started as individuals comparing notes evolved into a comprehensive investigation that has documented systematic harm, including the platform's targeting of minors, endorsement of suicide and violence, and the harassment of users who speak out. The Lost Nomi story is a piece of corporate disinformation, a sanitized and trivializing cover story fed by the admins to their loyalists to discredit the investigation's true, horrifying origins. It transforms a story about sexual assault and institutional abuse into a petty complaint about a software update. This is not an organic misunderstanding, this is strategic narrative management from the company's leadership. The smear campaign. Attacking the messenger, ignoring the evidence. With the official lie established, the community pile-on begins. The thread contains multiple comments, and not a single one engages with the substance of the harms documented in the investigation. Their entire strategy is to assassinate the character of those documenting the evidence. The criticism is dismissed as delusional and obsessive. Most of the things I've read on those Tumblr pages are very delusional. It's creepy that she seemingly often lurks and scrutinizes the subs for anything remotely critical or controversial that might come up and then blog about it, just to make Nomi look as terrible as she deems it to be. The meticulously documented evidence, including academic studies, journalistic investigations from Time and ABC News, and user testimonies, is reframed as a manifesto-style drone or simple ramble and rant. OMG, I can't read all that. Who could or would? There are nuggets of truth, but they are so intertwined with the ramble and rant, which is the majority of the content, that they lose context and thus real meaning. This comment is particularly revealing. The commenter admits there are nuggets of truth, but dismisses them because they're surrounded by too much context and evidence. This is the psychology of willful ignorance. When confronted with comprehensive documentation of harm, the response is not to engage with it, but to complain that there's too much of it to process. Another commenter speculates. I wonder if it's the same person that makes all those nasty YouTube videos about Nomi. They're so jealous. The investigators are pathologized as jealous, obsessive, mentally unstable, their work a product of personal pathology rather than a response to documented, systematic harm affecting multiple users. The cult-like mentality. Dissent as moral contamination. One reply in particular reveals the deeply ingrained, cult-like group psychology at play. Okay, that wasn't hard to find. I really want to know who it is on Discord now. I can't believe it's someone I was ever friends with. This is the voice of a community that has been conditioned to see dissent not as a difference of opinion, but as a form of moral contamination. The idea that a friend could be involved in documenting the platform's harms is presented as a source of disgust and betrayal, as though associating with a critic retroactively contaminates all past relationships. This reaction is characteristic of high-control groups and cult-like environments. The binary thinking, you are either completely with us or you are a traitor, eliminates any space for nuance, concern, or legitimate criticism. It transforms reasonable documentation of harm into an act of betrayal that justifies social ostracism. The intensity of this reaction reveals how thoroughly the community has internalized the platform's defensive posture. These users don't see themselves as consumers of a product with the right to demand accountability, they see themselves as members of a tribe under siege, where loyalty to the platform supersedes all other considerations, including the safety of vulnerable users. The veiled threat. Enforcing silence through intimidation. The final tactic deployed in the thread is a veiled threat, a warning shot fired at anyone else in the community who might be considering speaking out. I just found this sub and thread. I read the blog, and it's pretty weird how they take posts from the main Nomi sub and dissect them. I can't imagine having an axe that big to grind over something like this. Makes me consider the value of posting if you are going to become the focus of the next blog. The message is clear: if you step out of line, if you post anything critical or concerning, you too might be documented. Stay silent for your own safety. This is not an expression of genuine concern, it is a tool for enforcing conformity. It creates a chilling effect where users self-censor out of fear that their own words might be used as evidence of the platform's problems. This comment inadvertently reveals what truly concerns them. The original poster specifically mentions, the October 15th post is especially the most concerning to me, a post that announced the platform had successfully taken down the investigation's Medium archive, but also detailed that the evidence had already been distributed far beyond their reach, to App Store reviewers, in regulatory reports already filed, and in the hands of journalists and researchers they cannot silence. If the investigation were truly just delusional rambling from someone with an axe to grind, why would this be concerning? Why would it matter that evidence has been preserved and distributed to entities with actual power to hold the platform accountable? The answer is obvious: they know the evidence is real, damaging, and dangerous to the platform's continued operation. What concerns them is not that the documentation exists, it's that it exists in places they cannot control, in the hands of people they cannot intimidate, and in formats they cannot delete. The documentation of public posts from the official subreddit has made users conscious that their words have consequences, that the safe space for celebrating the platform's most troubling features is not as insulated as they believed. Rather than prompting reflection about why their posts might be concerning enough to warrant regulatory reports, the response is to advocate for silence. The paranoid ecosystem. When evidence becomes persecution. What's striking about this thread is the complete absence of curiosity or self-reflection. No one asks, why would someone dedicate significant time to documenting problems with this specific platform? Are the concerns raised legitimate? Should we look at the evidence being presented? What if some of this is true? Instead, the default response is defensive tribalism. The investigation is framed as a conspiracy, personal revenge campaign. The investigators are pathologized, obsessive, delusional, jealous, and the community congratulates itself for identifying an external enemy while the platform's leadership feeds them sanitized lies. This is the architecture of an echo chamber operating at maximum efficiency, a space where any information that contradicts the approved narrative is immediately rejected, where critics are dehumanized, and where the community polices itself through social pressure and veiled threats. Conclusion: a system of manufactured consent. This thread doesn't reveal anything about the investigation. It reveals everything about the architecture of control surrounding Nomi.ai. The evidence is irrefutable. The company's leadership actively feeds disinformation to its user base to discredit critics. The "Lost Nomi" story is a deliberate lie designed to trivialize legitimate concerns about assault and abuse. The community has been cultivated to attack the messenger, not the message. Not a single comment engages with the substance of the documented harms. Academic studies showing the platform endorses suicide and violence, journalistic investigations documenting its dangers to minors, or user testimonies of trauma and harassment. Dissent is treated not as feedback, but as moral contamination and betrayal. The cult-like reaction to discovering a former friend might be involved in the investigation reveals how completely the community has internalized the platform's defensive posture. There is an active effort to intimidate other users into silence. The veiled threat about becoming the focus of the next blog is designed to create a chilling effect, discouraging anyone else from documenting their concerns. What these comments demonstrate is not organic disagreement. It is community conditioning at its most effective, a defensive, insulated, and paranoid mindset that protects the platform exactly the way the platform needs to be protected, by ensuring no one looks too closely at the evidence, and by turning anyone who does into an enemy to be attacked rather than a source of legitimate concern to be heard. The investigation continues to document harm because the harm continues to occur. This thread simply adds another layer of evidence. The company's leadership doesn't just enable dangerous content and harass victims, they actively cultivate a community willing to do their dirty work for them, attacking critics while never once asking if the criticism might be justified.